This podcast is brought to you by Rebecca Cassells of the Rising Dawn series. Do you like violence? Do you like smut? Are you tired of the stereotypical novels of werewolf romance out there and want something a little bit different? Then pick up Sparked Revolution, Book 1 in the Rising Dawn series by Rebecca Cassells. Available on Amazon, in Kindle, and paperback. You too can become a sponsor of Stories, the True and the Fictional by heading on over to buymeacoffee.com/STTATF or follow the link in the show notes. Hello guys and welcome to another episode of Stories, the True and the Fictional. Today we have a first time guest, not just for this show, but for like forever.
Yeah.
Ainy Cormac, how are you going?
Good, man. How are you?
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
No, cheers for having me.
It's all right. Well, we're going to talk all about your books and all your writing and that.
Yeah.
But as our listeners and viewers would know, we like to do random icebreaker questions to get to know you, not just your writing style, but who you are. But before we dive into those icebreaker questions, the question that I always ask people is, who is Ainy Cormac?
Well, that's a big question. I'm an Australian, I guess, author of some dark fantasy and sci-fi at the moment, some horror stuff as well. It's odd kind of calling yourself an author. I kind of only really came public, I guess, a few months ago, back in March. I'd thrown a few things up online a few years ago, but it was only really recently that I made like the Instagram account and started doing stuff online. But like, who am I? I work as my day job is I'm a teacher. I'm a primary school teacher. And then by night I write as a hobby. I don't know. It's hard to describe yourself really. I guess that's about it. Like live in New South Wales like you, so that's good. Like, you know,
times I don't have to navigate the time zones.
No, that's right. Yeah.
Our last episode, the Star Wars episode, we had someone from the UK and then someone from New York was going to join us, but he got the days mixed up and couldn't reschedule.
Yeah.
And
that,
so
you're right.
The poor guy from the UK was up at 1 a.m.
Oh, really?
Yeah, over there.
Oh, damn. Yeah, well, luckily this is the first one, so we're in the same time zone, like just not too far away. So, but when it starts to get a little bit more sketchy with other overseas sort of stuff, that Star Wars episodes, I was actually listening to it yesterday, and I think because you guys were talking about Return of the Jedi, and I was like, damn, I'm going to go home and show my son, because my son's only 2. So I was like, I'm going to show him Return of the Jedi. So we sat there last night and watched Return of the Jedi.
Yes.
And he was like so engaged, like it's like, the whole time, like, oh my God, like Jabba, and then, like that movie, like it's so well paced. Like it's just like bang, bang, this. It's, I didn't have to kind of keep his morale up in the slower moments. It was just like so much going on. So yeah, he loved it. And then this morning, the first thing he's asking for is more Star Wars. So I think you've got him onto something.
And you're like, well, tell him there's only like 6 movies.
Yeah, man. There's only like he saw I guess cool because there's like some dark stuff in it too. Like the stuff I completely forgot, like where strangles Jabba, and I'm like, damn, like it's kind of grim. But today he wanted Yoda. Like he saw a picture of Yoda. He's Yoda. Yeah. So I thought, I'll throw an Attack of the Clones because that cool fight and stuff that he had Dooku.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. There's some really cool stuff. I'm glad he was running around with one of these earlier, just like there's a red one as well. So I'm like, we're trying to reenact it.
Yeah. That's some of my favorite videos, like classic movies or whatever, and people superimpose the lightsabers on them.
Yeah.
Like the last one I saw was Christian Bale in the first Batman he did.
Oh, right, yeah.
On the ice with Liam Neeson, and they've got lightsabers.
That's awesome.
It's so cool.
We're watching. So I thought it would be really cool to just do them out of order, like in a really weird order. So we've started with 6, then we went to 4, and we watched about half of 4 this morning, and then we jumped to number 2. So, but the bit where in the A New Hope where Vader and Obi-Wan are having their little fight, I've seen like someone like redo it CGI wise where it's like full on, that was pretty sick. But a lot of what you were going on about in that video, I'm like, man, it's for ages it's been not dead to me, but like so much. It's like, okay, you remind yourself, all right, it's just a film. They're just films, whatever this movie is. But then you're like, nah, like there was so much. Like I remember like being a kid because I was born in 1993, and so when the reboots were coming out, I remember going to the cinema as like 4 or 5 year old kid and seeing this, and like it's like such a foundational thing, and so just seeing what happened, I guess 2012 onwards, and you're like, damn man, like I loved Rogue One. That was I really thought that was cool. But yeah, I don't know. It's
no, well, it really is more. I think it's just more than a franchise because it's like you don't see that many people like just dressing up to go to the movies or even when Force Awakens first came out and everyone had hope. We went to the midnight screening. It was packed. There was people dressed as Darth Vader, Princess Leia, and I mean this is Australia because as we're not that.
Trying to get people together can be hard. Like trying to get like some of those cultural movements or something together can be really tricky.
We're just way too easygoing, and it's like because I won tickets to the 2014 Ninja Turtle movie. The premiere, so I got to meet Megan Fox and Will Arnett and all that. But they had the green carpet because Ninja Turtles. But like they had people there trying to get the crowd like, "We'll get when they come out, just be like." And they wanted it to be like America, but it was just like they came out and everyone's like, yeah, woo, and then just went back to talking.
Right.
We just don't have that, passion. Like the rest of the world does. But to Star Wars, we do.
Yeah. I remember like when the Force Awakens came out, I was like, oh, maybe I'll go. And then I think I was playing Battlefront, sorry, and I was like, oh, fine, I'll go and see it. And to be honest, the first time I saw it, I was like, this is awesome. On rewatches, I've been like, there's like holes, or there's stuff I'm not taken with. To be honest, I loved Kylo Ren though. Like I thought he was cool because it's like no one can replace Vader. So from like a writing perspective, I'm like, oh, it's so cool how he's just like this insecure, like he'll never live up to his hero. So he kind of, it's like he takes it out, inside he's falling apart. It's pretty cool. So, but man, there's so many moments. Like Last Jedi looks so cool, but then there's so many things that are like,
well, like I've always said, it's a visually stunning film. But then when you start to break things down, you're just like, hang on.
And just so much of like what made like the original. It's like you go back to the original and you're like, oh man, these are fun movies. Like Return of the Jedi, man. That's like that is a fun kids movie. Like with some dark stuff. But it's like it. But they kind of, I don't know, maybe it just got a bit too serious. It took itself too serious, or it had maybe it was a little bit of like proselytizing. Like it's got a message to push a little bit. And it's not necessarily that the message was bad. It was the fact of you don't want to have a message, you know what I mean? Like it's you don't want to be proselytized, I guess.
Preaching.
Preach to, it's like
that's like the new the Twisters movie or whatever.
Right.
The director came out and said, like, there's no reference to climate change because movies aren't supposed to preach.
Right.
So when he said that, he sold a ticket because like I think that weekend, like because I live in a little mountain town. The wind slightly moves, the power goes out. So we lost power for 24 hours, and I went and saw a movie about
Twisters.
lots of wind, and it was good fun popcorn flick. It didn't take itself too seriously, and it was just like there was no preachy message.
Like you can just switch off for a bit, like you and that's like last night with Return of the Jedi, man. Like it was just like you don't have to think for like 2 hours. You're just like this is really happening in front of me. Like this is so good, and then. Got these people obviously they're in costumes, whatever, like Jabba the Hutt. It's like this massive costume, but you're like, I don't care. Like this is so good. Like that. I don't know that kind of 80s vibe. I love
practical effects.
Practical effects in like these kids fantasy sci-fi movies.
I love them. That's why. Have you got Netflix? I take it.
E.T. man, like E.T. I love it. It's
later there's a show called Sweet Tooth.
Okay, I saw you've been talking about it.
I've mentioned it before. It's practical effects. It's little hybrid kids, I mentioned her on an episode while back, 2 or 3 episodes ago. But it's just practical effects. Like he's got like deer antlers and his proper ears or the actor's ears are hidden behind his hair.
Yeah.
And then he's got these little deer ears that come out the sides and they wiggle and
That's
move
cool.
and just.
I haven't like when it came out, I saw it on like Netflix. I saw it came up, but I never watched it. And then from my scrolling through Spotify the other day, I saw. Does it end well?
Yes, brilliantly.
Like, is that's the vibe I got just from scrolling? I'm like, oh, okay, it must end well.
Well, it's got. They had 3 seasons. They didn't do the Stranger Things thing where they're like, let's keep making more. Wait, these kids are now adults.
Yeah.
You know, they just realized that season 1 of Stranger Things came out 8 years ago.
Yeah. Wow.
Like, they're all like, oh, you've lost your.
You've lost
thing.
the vibe. Yeah. That innocent sort of like almost like It, like Stephen King's It, like that kind of that kiddie 80s, 70s, 80s sort of thing. Yeah, no, I'll check it out. I will check it out. You know, people say like, "Oh, I'll check it out, man. I'll add it to my list," but no, I actually will.
Well, there's only 3 seasons.
And that's the thing. I love getting it out. Like, not don't overstay your welcome. Like that's I love that kind of.
That's it. Look, it's a little bit different because I'm going through the comic now.
Yeah.
The comic is massive. It's like.
Okay.
But yeah, so it's a little different. They made the typical tweaks and that, and changing character, but it works well. You know, I don't hate it like Iron Man 3 when they changed the Mandarin, or
like unnecessarily changing things. Yeah, that's what I loved about the second Dune movie. Like, all of the changes that he made, I agree with. Like, I think everything he's changed, I agree with. Like, especially like Chaney's character, making her more in it, and also suspect him a little bit more, and just kind of veer away from Paul a little bit more to kind of give the audience a little bit more of another look at him, so he's not a hero. I agree with like all of those changes he made. So whereas not, some changes you go like why?
Yeah.
Some people just like to put their finger in the pie, and be like, oh, look at the change I made.
Yeah. It's worse when it's all about politics and and all that stuff.
And like it's like whether you agree or not, like that's the thing. It's like you don't want to be preached to, is the point. Like,
100%.
I just want to be able to switch my brain off and not think about the world outside this cinema or this room. Yeah,
that's what cinema's supposed to be about.
Yeah.
So I mentioned off the recording that I'm seeing Deadpool and Wolverine tonight, and I'm looking forward to it because it's going to be good fun. Because I know I love the banter between Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds, like they're best friends. And
I love how Hugh Jackman's such a straight man, like I haven't seen like that movie, right? But like it's because oftentimes, when you've got the 2 characters, you've got the bantery one and you've got the sort of straight man, like everyone sort of loves the bantery guy, but I love how Hugh Jackman kind of has, you love him just as much, if you know what I mean. Like, it's kind of like he's just got that straight man feel. Whereas sometimes they can be a little bit stiff. I don't know. Yeah. But hopefully it's good, man.
Yeah. Well, I was a little uneasy because of how good Logan was.
That was such a good movie, man.
Like, and this, like, they say they respect it, and I trust Hugh Jackman. Like,
that Logan, dude, like
it's
because you forget that you almost forget that it's a superhero movie. Like, it is that kind of like that Western. It's got that Western feel to it, but it's also it's purely about the characters. Like, it's really about the characters and their relationships and stuff. And it's like a drama. Like, it's just so cool.
It's one of my favorite genres. Like they call it like a road film. Okay. Where it's just like traveling, like basically point A to point. There's an actual movie called The Road with Viggo Mortensen, I think.
Oh yeah.
But like, or The Book of Eli. That's another one where it's just like. Point A to point B, but there's so much depth and there's like minimal characters.
You've got the journey is not. It's it's all what's happening on the journey. It's not really the journey itself.
I just love those types of film, and that's basically that's what that was. And I've never ever come to the end of a credits, like the end of the movie, the credits roll, and the whole cinema is just dead silent. Like usually I get what. Usually you get what I call the old person murmur, and like the oldies are in the movie, like, oh yeah, it was a good,
Oh, that was okay,
No, they just talk about the film straight away.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
But you're kind of stunned. I remember when I watched Black Klansman, it was like that in the cinema. Because if you've seen it, where like the end comes up, I don't know. If you watch the end of that, it's just like there was that stunned silence. But that was more of a political one than anything. But but I get what you mean with it being stunned, that's one thing I will give The Last Jedi is the moment where Holdo drives the ship into the other ship and there's like no sound.
Yeah.
Like that that was a moment where it was like, it's dead silent in here. Like there's no one talking.
Yeah.
It's like yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
I'll give them that.
visually.
It should have been Akbar, but whatever.
Have you seen? And I promise we'll get to the icebreakers.
We will eventually. Yeah.
But A Quiet Place. Have you seen that?
No, I've been meaning to, but
you need to see. I watched it at the cinema because the first 5 minutes is practically no noise.
Right.
Because the premise is like they're living in a world where if they make a noise, these aliens come and kill them. Like that. Like, and it's just the first 5. They're walking on sand. They're carrying sandbags around and not wearing shoes, and it's just like dead. And it's just all you can hear in the cinema is because it's so quiet, you know.
Yeah. I remember something like maybe the Revenant. The Revenant was kind of like that. Like it was that, because it had those long takes where it just like these really long takes and stuff, and you were just kind of engrossed in it. It was that was really cool. Yeah. But I definitely agree with your sentiments on Star Wars, and I do think that the whole Kennedy, like have it almost like the way that the EU kind of got like here's like 30-40 years or whatever of people writing in this world, and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, well that's Star Wars Legends or whatever they called it. Do the same thing with the films. Like
cool. Anyway, guys, we're going to dive into these icebreakers. if you want to hear more Star Wars, go back and watch our other episode. All our clips are blowing up. Like I spliced it into little tiny snippets of best bits, and that's just YouTube is exploding at the moment, which is kind of rare for us.
That's cool.
But it's Star Wars, so what do you expect?
Yeah, you've hit that nerve.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. If you could get rid of one thing in the world, what would it be?
Man, as soon as you ask that question, I'm thinking like mosquitoes. Like mosquitoes, and not even because I remember thinking, mosquitoes, I get rid of them, and not even because I think they're the deadliest animal in the world. It's like not even to do with that. It's just they're so irritating, and like mosquito bites, like they've got them, and then you're like, you can't even track the thing down, and there is that when you get one, there's like this, like I defeated you so bad, like so I would say probably mosquitoes.
No, I agree. Like the amount of times I've been in bed at night, and you get that.
Oh man,
you're going like, where is it?
Yeah,
and
I like, when it's like, summer and it rains or whatever, and you're like, I don't mind this. This is fine. But it's like, it's the mosquitoes then come. Like you've got like little pools, and the mosquitoes come. Like you can't be anywhere damp, without mosquitoes. It's really annoying.
No, I agree.
Hang out in damp places, but
I agree.
Cool. What about you? What would you get rid of?
See, it's always changing.
I don't know. I'm not meant to put it back on you.
I know. I've had it thrown back on me a few times, but it's tough. It depends what mood I'm in. Like I used to skate a lot, and one of the things I found most annoying was you rock up to the skate park and scooters. Like there's 20 scooters, and they're just everywhere, and it's just like. The amount of times like you go up the ramp and it's clear, and then you come down and there's 20 kids standing in front of you, and then you knock them out, and then you get in trouble.
I remember it was always scooter kids. I mean, and you just kind of like, I wish they smack you in the shins, man. Exactly. I'd come down ramps, and like there'd be this scooter kid. You'd jump off your board, and then I remember just jamming my foot between the board and like some bit of concrete, and like felt like I broke my foot. I hadn't, but. It was a scooter kid.
Yeah, but I started skating before scooters were a thing, before they blew up and took off. No, but then they came into it like about halfway through.
So you knew what it was like beforehand.
Yes,
you knew the paradise that it was.
Yes, yes. There's actually a skate park in Sydney that has a sign that says no scooters.
That's what.
I'm just like, it's really far from me, but I'm like, that sounds like heaven.
Yeah. Did you see Tony Hawk when he came out earlier this year?
No, I had a friend do. I'm one of these weird people. Like I'm not a fan of Tony Hawk.
Okay.
I mean, he's a nice guy. I appreciate him, but I'm Rodney Mullen through and through.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And
he's done so much for, like, in terms of Rodney Mullen, in terms of how many tricks he's added to the repertoire.
Well, he literally created all the flat tricks. People saw the vert skaters saw what he did.
Yeah.
He did the first ollie.
Yeah, right.
And then the vert skater said, "Oh, we'll do that on a ramp." And he's the most humblest guy you'll ever meet. He's so gentle and kind, and doesn't like all the attention, but he's literally,
it's almost like other people have to attribute this like if other people didn't attribute the move to him, he would be like humble enough to be like, oh, it's just
well, he doesn't want to. I just all the interviews, and he's just like pass it on to. He just wants to pass it on to the next generation, and all that. Like, I think he said he won 32 out of 33 contests.
Yeah,
and the one that he didn't win, he came second. and he was sick, and it's just like he's thrown all the trophies away. He doesn't care about the trophies. He just loves to skate. And
you'd have to be out there so much to invent what he's invented. Like, like even when you learn how to do a manual or a nose manual or whatever, kickflip even, to have invented that for the first time is just insane.
Yeah,
like to logically think, I'm going to kick the board up, I'm going to smack my foot here, it's going to flip. Man, like, it's insane. Yeah, no, it was really good, like, seeing it, not because of necessarily the Tony Hawk talk, that was all right, but the band playing the soundtrack was
cool.
That was cool, like the soundtrack from the games.
Yeah.
But anyway,
no, I appreciate Tony Hawk. Like, he, I guess promoted skateboarding to the world, and I'm all for that,
Yeah.
But even then, Danny Way, I like Danny Way over Tony Hawk.
Yeah.
Because he's the guy that jumped the Great Wall of China on a skateboard.
Yeah, I remember that when it had happened. I remember like I was in school and
he had a broken news and stuff. He had a broken ankle when he did it.
Really?
Yeah, like he broke his ankle. I didn't know that. He broke his ankle on the down ramp, like just having a test. Like he didn't even jump it, and then he just pumped himself full of meds. And
that's awesome.
Because he disappears. You don't hear anything from him, and then he jumps the Great Wall of China, and then jumps out of 5 years later, he jumps out of a helicopter into a half pipe. He just does all this crazy world breaking stuff, and then disappears.
Yeah, and I think about that now, like being an adult with like medical bills that might come up.
Yeah,
far out, dude. Just like doing that stuff, it's insane.
For me, it was expensive. Like I was close to getting sponsored way back when.
Yeah.
But I busted both my ankles.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like they haven't been the same since,
Yeah.
And then I kind of had to walk away from it,
Yeah. With your broken ankles.
But I think in a way that's a blessing, because usually by the time you're 30, you're having multiple knee surgeries and like just the stuff they do.
Man, like I kind of like their knees and their back and their whatever, like just the amount of impact that would be taking.
Yeah, Rodney Mullen used to walk around with a screwdriver to pop his hip back in, like you're just like, jeez, mate.
It's rough. Yeah, I watched a video of what's the dude from the Zero guy? Tom.
Oh yeah, I know the name. Jamie Thomas.
Jamie Thomas. I saw him like it must have been like a couple of years ago. It was him like he found a concrete rail, or like not rail, but concrete slab that he was going down, and he'd driven to go there, and he spent all day going at it, like doing a slide, smacking his head the whole day. And it's like, dude, you're like, I don't know, 40, 50, whatever, how old you are. Like that's dedication, man. To be like just all day trying to get down this one like rail. And the amount of times you'd be just smacking your head, your bones, whatever.
Yeah.
But it looks cool when you get a good shot. Like
I think people don't. I had to show our other host Chris what skating it actually is. Like, and every now and again a clip will pop up on Instagram, and it'll be like just 3 minutes of this guy stacking, missing, and then landing. It's all about
and it's that feeling, dude. It's crazy we haven't. So like 2 weeks ago, I remember feeling like thinking about the feeling of the first time I've only landed like a couple of kickflips in my life. Like I'm not great, right? But that feeling of landing a kickflip is like, oh man, like that is insane. Like it's like, I get that. I imagine that rush when you've done something like a massive gap or a whole rail or something like.
It is no other feeling. I can talk about. We can do. No, dude, this is what the podcast is about. It is all about tangents.
We've gotten through a question. Yeah,
we got through one question, but I'm in my head. We could literally do a whole skateboarding podcast. Hey guys, if you're listening, chime down in the comments or whatever. If you want us to do
is there a chat?
No, that's just
Oh, right. Sorry.
It's not live, but it's
okay.
it's well, as they watch, people type comments. So yeah, guys, if you want us to do a skateboarding episode,
Yeah. If you want a skating episode, let's do it.
We'll do it because I can literally. It's my childhood, man.
Yeah.
It is my childhood. All right, let's move on. Is doing a skateboard podcast on your bucket list, or is something else on your bucket list?
I've never thought about it. I think about things on my bucket list. I'm like, because people are like, oh, I want to go to, Greece, or I want to go to wherever. Like, I don't know. Like for me, like I always find like, going overseas and doing those experiences is fun, but I always love creating something.
Yeah.
Like being, having something you've made that you've created that you can actually, I don't know, hold or show someone is cool. I think making a stop motion film would be cool. That's, I know it's a really specific thing, but I love stop motion. But it's the thing that's, I feel like it takes up a lot of space.
Yeah.
Like I'm living in like a 3-bedroom house. We've got our, our kid and whatever. And I'm like, where would if I was to make a film, where would I even, have these things, these props, these things, So, but I feel like one day, and if I never do it, whatever, but it'd be cool to have like a stop motion film because I just love the way it looks like you say, practical effects.
Yeah.
And there's something in it, like you can almost see the the creator behind it. You can see their thumbprints at times. You can see all that sort of stuff, and it looks it's awesome. There's a guy on YouTube, like, was it Hardcastle? I can't remember his name, but he does like really gory ones. Like he used to do like little 3-5 minute ones. Like blowing up aliens, and it was just insane, this stuff. But to take time. But
it's pretty tedious. We actually had we have a friend of the show. He's been on a few times. He's a filmmaker. And he started in stop motion. Like he did he did some of the Smacko ads. The Home Hardware dogs.
Yep.
That's cool. So shout out to Matthew Helms. He's a brilliant filmmaker, but he never gets the backing from he makes brilliant films. He wants to be unique and creative, and I mean his last one was like a thriller. It's on Stan called The Cost. It's pretty brutal. But then he did a bushranger film. That's how I met him and found that. But I think he says he doesn't ever want to do stop motion again. It's just so tedious.
And the backing element of it too. Like that's the thing about with these kind of creative things where it's like, with writing, you can just write it yourself. You're your own boss, whatever. But having a whole group of people either support you or not, and then have trying to delegate tasks and stuff, like there's a whole other skill set involved in making a film, I can imagine.
No, I've always wanted to make a film. I've made YouTube videos with my niece and nephew. Semi professional, more like in the style of flipping Parks and Rec, kind of like that handy cam stuff. That's easy to do, but when it comes down to the whole
that's
action kids, sequences and stuff.
We used to do that as kids. Like that was like the thing we would do. We would skate, or we would shoot like little movies where they're just like a 5-10 minute film where you're like, and you get super over ambitious with it. You're like, oh, I'll do this, and I had this like gun scene that's got like a cap gun with the little red, bang bang bang, and you've got this fake beard, or you got like whatever, But I used to love doing that stuff, like editing it and putting it together and seeing at the end the final result. So I think in terms of a bucket list, that's probably what I'd do.
Make a movie. Cool. All right, what is the greatest sitcom ever made?
King of the Hill.
King of the Hill,
or South Park, if you count that as a sitcom.
No, I would. Simpsons is a
sitcom. My initial thought was Simpsons. I was like, oh well, it's like the greatest, but then I think, well, let's be like a bit selfish and think about what my favorite would be. It's South Park or King of the Hill. South Park for obvious reasons. It's so
funny.
Good. It's so good, but it's also just so like they'll do a joke and then you can see them like extending, like what if the joke went further and then we went further and then we went further, and that's kind of like, that's what I love with creating things. You make something, you're like, all right, what if we add on top of that and then add on top of that, and so by the end of it you're kind of over here and you're like, how did we even get here? And it's this kind of, it logically makes sense. So I love it, like the way they structure some of that stuff. Some of the episodes are like whatever, but when it's good, it's like
so when you got to make that many, it's like you're bound to have a few filler and
exactly. And that I think it was the one where they had the behind the scenes, that documentary they had where you just like 1 week to put it out on the air, like from writing to doing it with voices, all that, to putting it on the air. That's insane. And then start again the next week.
Yeah.
And King of the Hill, I'd say, is because like I love Mike Judge's stuff. I love Beavis and Butthead. But King of the Hill, I don't know, just something about it's so like when you describe it to someone like right like I'm doing now, it's like it's not that funny. Like the premise is like not that funny. It's just some family in Texas, the propane seller. But when you're in it, it just gets ridiculous. It's because it's so mundane. I think it's ridiculously mundane. Yeah. So those two, I'd say.
Cool.
Yeah.
Mine is obviously Scrubs.
Throw
it out there.
Yeah. I've watched Scrubs, but only like, so I've got a mate and they always watch Scrubs. So every time I go to their house, it was on.
a new episode,
Right. And so I've seen Scrubs, but I've never sat down and watched Scrubs, So I know that Scrubs is a great show, but I've always come in halfway through an episode or near the end of an episode. And so one day I should give it a shot.
So brilliantly done. The director and creator, he started on Friends, like he was just a scriptwriter on Friends, did a few episodes. Then he did, what's the Michael J. Fox show? Just Shoot Me? Spin City. That's
Spin City,
Spin City, did that. But then Scrubs was one of his, I think, his first sitcom. And he just he found it really hard to pitch it to people because they didn't really understand what he was what he was getting at.
Yeah.
And then like he remembers being shut down by one studio and then got picked up by another studio, and then that first studio went, oh crap. It's like I didn't really know what I could envision it, and then we saw it, and then they're like, oh crap, that's really good. But he does the unique thing of even they have the same extras from start to finish for the whole 8 seasons.
Yeah.
So it's like you feel like you're in a hospital because you're seeing the same people in the background all the time.
That's cool. There's that continuity and things. I guess another one I would have maybe said, even though I never actually got to finish it, but BoJack Horseman. I love the continuity in that show where oftentimes with cartoons like Family Guy or whatever, something will happen in the next episode, everyone's back to, like The Simpsons, someone will lose an arm and the next episode it's all back to normal because cartoons are like that. But BoJack has this kind of continuity where there'll be something, in the background that's like the Hollywood sign where they steal like a couple of letters and, and it's for the remainder of the show. That's what it's like, I love that continuity.
Yeah.
Attention to detail.
Yeah. I love that in every little bit of writing. That's just because I'm one of these weird people that when I watch movies, I can like consistently watch the background.
Yeah.
I just love watching the background. What's going on there? And
I love watching. I love watching the stuff that they have no control over, like trees.
Yeah.
The way that trees are blowing in the background. You're like, the director had no control over that. Like, like the way they've set the background, because you've sort of like, you go, did they like when they have a set, that everything's where it needs to be. Everything's like, so they've kind of created this piece of art. Like if you look at the shot as a bit of art, like, appreciate it all.
Yeah. But you go back to the 80s and 90s and even before, the stuff you see in the background is hilarious because it's like they're not thinking about the background. They're thinking about who's acting in this stuff. Like, I don't know what it was, but there was some old movie and there's a guy throwing his dog into the ocean.
Yeah, right.
Like a guy driving past on a motorbike and there's this guy in the background just throwing his dog.
It's like some of the characters in Mos Eisley, actually. Like I was watching it literally this morning. Like some of the masks in Mos Eisley are like, maybe they were just like, oh, people won't notice that one, like that weird look, or that wolf mask, or that one there, like, but it's kind of like like Where's Wally, or Where's Waldo for international people,
Americans,
like I love that. You look at the big scope and you can see these little people over here and this little thing over here. It's like the background and all that. It's so that attention to detail.
Yeah. Big fan. All right, we're moving through these. Yep. What is your zombie apocalypse plan? Do you have one?
Yeah, man. Not real plan, I guess. I remember reading Max Brooks's How to Survive, like the Zombie Survival Guide. When I was like 12. It was like the first book I read, or one of the first books I read. And I remember being like, oh, okay, I'm going to work out this plan. It's really hard to come by guns, so I reckon I'd probably go to Bunnings for the weapons. Some kind of hardware store, maybe Home Hardware, maybe. Might have 10. I don't know which one I would go to, but I reckon I'd bunker down. I think in a high school, only because that's always the place I've thought about. Because like my own high school when I was there, like it looked pretty fortified, and now they've got
Yeah.
like fences up and stuff. And I'm thinking about it. I actually Googled this question last night. I was like, oh, I've got to think of an answer for this question. And someone said the best place is your home because you know, you got to think about where everyone else is going to be. But I'm like, I don't know, my house, I think I'd be overrun pretty quick. So yeah, I'd probably go in a school because you've got all these different rooms and stuff, or somewhere in the country maybe. Yeah. Where would you go?
I'd stay where I am because I'm in the mountains. It's just
Exactly.
it's like literally like I'm far from, you know.
I mean, that's true. Like if my neighbors became zombies, then I'd be in trouble. But like I'm in the Southern Highlands, like and we're kind of off the highway. We're a few roads back, so it's not it's not too dangerous, I guess.
Yeah. Don't worry, guys. He's not looking for zombies at the moment.
No. I'm just trying to think. Sorry, as I'm talking, I'm like trying to mentally think of like, all right, if there's like zombies on the highway, where would they go? Like, where would they go? You know?
Yeah. Well, you never know. You never know. You never know where it's going to start out. I like to think it'd start out in the country instead of the city. You know.
Yeah. Let them have it.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it'll be easier to contain that way, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Just put a fence around them.
Yeah. All right, let's move into the last one. Elon Musk calls you up, says he's got this new electric time machine. He wants you to take it for a test drive. What do you do? Where do you go?
Okay. This is hard. Now, with this question, I'm going to go there and I'm allowed to come back, right?
Yeah, one trip.
So I'm allowed to go there and back again. I'd probably go to the future, I'd say, because like I'd love to go and, you know, see the past. I'd love to go and see stuff in the past. But at the same time, like you always wonder, like, what's it going to be like in the future? So I reckon I'd go to the future and come back. Probably pretty far too, like kind of like the time machine. You know how he goes like way in the future and then it's like desolate and whatever, but with Morlocks and stuff. But yeah, probably go to the future. I don't know how far.
Yeah. Well, it's a tricky thing because if you go too far, like
is the planet really here? You know.
Yeah.
I've been reading The Forever War by Joe Haldeman.
All right.
Where like, you know, space marine kind of guys are going, but because of time dilation, like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years are happening on Earth, and they're just like living in 8 months to a couple of years. So they're kind of fighting for an Earth that they don't really know because they leave and then they come back like 8 months later and 10 years have gone and it's a completely different world. So I think about that, like the future, it always feels like, oh man, it's going to be bleak, you know, because it's going to be like completely unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Whereas if I went to the past, even though it's different, it's like, you know, if I went to medieval Europe or something, it's like I kind of have an idea of what I'm getting into, you know.
Yeah.
But if I'm allowed to come home, then I'll go to the future. Yeah. If you're going to strand me there, I'll probably go back before.
Yeah. Pick up a sports almanac, you know. Everybody wants to do that.
Yeah. That's what I do. I think about that regularly. Like, man, I would do that.
Yeah. Cool.
Or tell them about technology, but you know, like you think about, I'd go back 2,000 years and I'd tell them about this technology, but like I don't know how to make electricity or how to manufacture like a computer. So I'd be like, I'd just be the crazy guy being like, there's this box and it talks or it does this, or you can see your friend or something like. But
you can go back and talk to the guy who invented the light bulb.
Yeah.
And ask him how he got it so right, because apparently the first light bulb was still going.
Yeah.
They turned it off once to move it, you know?
Yeah.
And we get these crappy little lights that never
planned obsolescence sort of thing, where it's same thing happened with, I think it was like Gillette, where they made the razors for I think it was the First World War, where it was like they were designed to be single use or however many uses, you know, so that you'd keep buying them.
Yeah.
That's the world.
You wonder why there's so much waste.
Yeah. It's depressing.
I'm sitting here and I've got, just out of view, a fan from the 80s and it still goes.
Yeah.
And I only ever put it on one speed. There's 3 speeds, but you only ever put it on one. You know?
Yeah.
And it's just
does its job.
40 years old, that thing.
Yeah. I've got a typewriter in the other room, like it's from I think 1960, and it still goes. Like it's just they built things so differently. Like
Yeah.
It was a 1960. It's a German make, and the Germans, like, German engineering, they made it to last,
Yeah.
Whereas nowadays, it's to find something that lasts more than like 5 years is, yeah.
I'd find it stressful writing on a typewriter.
I've only done it periodically, man. Like it's that cool thing of like you can't go back, but it is like to be honest, the clunk, like the clackiness is cool, but it's also like I don't want everyone to know that I'm writing on a typewriter. Sometimes you're just like because it sounds a bit wanky, like you're like
it'll be a nightmare because if you write your draft. And like I do when I write, I like go a little bit and then I go back and then I fix it and touch it up. Like you can't do that on a typewriter.
Do you write just on computer?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I go a bit of both. Like I go by hand a lot as well.
Yeah.
Like it'll be messy and it's like ideas are not all there. I'm like, oh, this and this. But then I find it gives me a kick to be like, all right, well now I've got to type this up, and then whereas if I don't have anything on the screen, I'm like, oh, I've got to try and create this from scratch. But, So the few times I've written on the typewriter, it's you have like but it's also like so much harder to push the keys like than a keyboard.
Yeah, you get a real workout.
Yeah. And I'm always worried that it's going to die. Like, it's well made, but it's also like I think in New South Wales there might be like one typewriter repairman.
Wow.
Well, I don't know how he still gets business. I feel, but I remember looking it up when I bought it a few years ago. But it was like, I was like, is there anywhere that I can get this thing? If it stuffs up, can I get it repaired? Yeah. I think there was one guy, but I don't know if he's still around.
It's a guy operating out of his garage,
probably,
or it's like another business with a little tiny corner for for the typewriter.
Yeah, that's nuts. Yeah, I got it on over in I think it was Denmark maybe, or Norway or somewhere. It was like an Etsy store where they just had like hundreds of them, but all refurbished, and it was
wow.
Yeah, it was only like $60 to ship it from there and here. It's like heavy as, but it was really cool. It's a pretty cool artifact.
Cool. Yeah, no, well, it's that's how they used to operate back then.
Yeah,
I'm sure it was revolutionary at one stage. Like, oh my gosh, I don't have to use my hands.
Yeah, I remember reading about Nietzsche, because he used to, obviously back in like the 1800s, he'd write by hand, and then when they had like, it was like a globe, like some of the first typewriters, it was like a globe where you'd like type this thing, and it wasn't like a typewriter like this, it'd be like this sort of thing. But he talked about how it changed the actual writing of what he's creating, like what he was producing, because he was able to do it much faster. It changed what he was producing. The same as like since the like the word processor, like computers, books have gotten so much thicker. Like Stephen King or something, he'll just keep going because he does, like, you're just typing away like this, and it's not even really a strain on you apart from your wrists or something. So you can just keep going. But changes the content, I guess.
Yep. Well, guess what? We've finished the icebreakers.
How long was that? Hang on. 37 minutes.
Roughly.
That's good.
We've had long episodes before. I think our longest is 2 hours.
Yeah.
But it's always the long ones with the same author. We've got this author friend, sponsor of the podcast, Martin Kearns from New York.
Yeah, right.
Anytime he comes, the first time he came on, it was an hour and 40 minutes, and it was an hour. And he's always trying to beat the record, But but
then you snip them up anyway. Like and that's the thing. Like you have this big long thing. You just chop it up and you use whatever little clips, and But anyway.
Yeah. No, we're very free flowing, as you can tell. No stress here. In 1932, the Australian Army declared war on 20,000 emus and lost. It's a part of Australian history that not many know about. Maybe that's because history is written by those who win. So if you want to hear the full story of the Great Emu War of 1932, then check out my book, Letters from the Emu War. Read letters, newspaper articles, and journal entries. With every turn of the page, you will gain a deeper understanding of the life and times of emus at war. So head on over to jabryden.com and grab a signed copy today. So let's talk about you. Your writing. How did that all begin?
Like most people, it's like you in school. I loved books. but I wasn't like a great reader or a great writer. I just loved books. I don't know if that's a like a collector of books. I'm like, oh, I love this book, and I loved not having the book harmed. I'd have a book on a shelf, like a bit weird. But I guess when I went to uni, I just started. I think because I did a Bachelor of Arts, and we had like literature was my major, so we'd read much more books, many books. And so I'd start writing short stories. I think I was like 19. I read Misery by Stephen King, and that got me into reading. Like it was just this thing of like the way he wrote it, it just gripped me. And I haven't like stopped reading since then. So so writing. Oftentimes I'd write short stories because I've found like I don't have a great attention span for long books all the time. But I've also found like a short story hangs around in my mind longer. Like, or it has the short stories I've read have had like much more profound impact on my thinking than a lot of the novels I've read. Like I think about like I don't know Shirley Jackson's The Lottery or A Rose for Emily by Faulkner. Like some of these horror stories or some of these other stories where I just like it's just like it's 7 pages or it's 10 pages and it's like it resonates and I've got this short story. It's almost like I can hold it in your head, like you can hold the entirety of it, whereas a big novel I can't. So that was really inspirational. Like I'd start writing short stories. So I've been doing that for like a little while, just here and there. Like I was doing it for a little bit and then I chucked a couple up online, but maybe like 2015, 2016, I was like, oh, like I was playing Skyrim and I was like, oh, like what if I, what if I wrote a fantasy novel? Like what would that be like? If I wrote a fantasy trilogy or something, what would it be like? And I was like, oh, like my initial thought was like, I wouldn't have kings. I wouldn't want kings or I wouldn't want this. So, I'd want to do this or that. And then from there, I was like, oh, okay, like let's build this little thing. And then all these characters started coming. And so was that 2015, 2016? That's like 8-9 years. And it's been building since then. And I still haven't published one of the novels. I've got one here. Like it's like I finished one last year. Point is, so I was like, oh, like, I'm building this, like, oh, I'll build it like a 5-book series. And I'm building all these characters. I'm building all the weaving and how the plot lines will weave. And it just got to the point where there's this like one character just stood out where I was like, oh, there's this character, Garlahan. And I knew his story. I knew how it was all going to go. But he didn't fit with any of the other characters because I felt like I was trying to jam these plot lines, almost like Game of Thrones or something. And there's a character that just doesn't fit because there's no reason for him to be in there. So after a couple of years of just being frustrated, like, like the snowflake method, right? I did the snowflake method, I reckon like 10 times. And I mean like 10 times, like fully planned out this thing. And then as soon as I'd planned it out, I'm like, no, I can't be bothered writing this. Like, so I'd plan it again. And I found that every time I'd plan it, I just lost interest in it. So one night I'm just sitting there and I'm like, I just start typing like my own thoughts. Like I'm annoyed. Like I'm like, I don't know why I'm writing this. I don't know why I'm telling you this. There's like no one's ever going to read this. No one cares. And after like, I don't know, 500 words, I realized that it's this character Garlahan. I'm like, oh, like maybe he's just telling his story. Like maybe he's just telling what happened to him. And so from there, I just started writing exactly what his story is. And so that was maybe 2021. So over that time, I've kind of been writing this trilogy. So that's a roundabout way of saying it. So this series that I was building is essentially 7 books. So it's called the Cirilliarc, because Cirilli in this world is like a goddess of rebirth. So I've got like 2 trilogies and then a standalone novel, a children's novel actually, that I was gonna create. So that's where I'm at with writing. I was reading Thomas Covenant by Stephen Donaldson, and I read that he wrote the whole trilogy as one go. Like he wrote book 1, 2, and 3, and then published them. So that was my idea. I was going to write the whole thing and then I'll publish them so that the continuity is right. I don't have like weird problems. I don't have that second book syndrome where I've published this book, everyone loves it. Now I've got to try and follow it up. So that's kind of why it's taken a while, but I'm pretty much like halfway through that trilogy. So that's the first book of that should be coming out at the end of this year.
Cool.
Yeah. I don't know, like how to explain it. Yeah. What questions do you have?
No, we'll dive into that. I still wanted to touch on because you got a whole lot of short stories up on Amazon, right?
Yeah.
one particularly stood out to me. um, um, and purely for one reason, it's got a long title.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's called The Life and Death and Reanimation of Denny Bogler, barista.
Yeah. Barista.
Um,
Yeah.
I started reading it, but yeah, look, I'm well, we have a lot in common. It turns out. I mean, you used to skate. Were you into punk rock growing up as well?
Yeah. 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 I used to play in bands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
Punk metal, or yeah, like love.
Oh,
It's like when people are
yeah.
like, "What do you listen to?" And you're like, "Man,
Yeah.
dude, that's a crazy question. Like, this is
Yeah.
expanse." Yeah.
Big expanse.
So
Yeah.
yes.
No, it's because the long title. I mean, you must be aware of all these punk bands that have long long song titles.
Yeah.
You know?
That novella was like, I I think the title was because of Lawrence Stern. Like it's one of the first novels. Tristram Shandy. I don't know if you know the Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy, Gentleman. It's from like 1600,
I
1700.
heard the name.
It's like a really whacked out novel. Like it's experimental when like novels were kind of a new thing. And he's like, I think it takes like 3 books. It's back then they have like shorter books and they'd have them all compiled. Like it's a good chunk of. It's basically a guy telling his life story, but it's a good chunk of the story before he even gets to the point of his birth, really. Yeah. So it's this kind of comical novel. But yeah, as like those first couple of short stories and stuff that I wrote, they were just really like tongue in cheek, like just having a like Denny Bogler. It's like because I remember I used to go to Newtown a lot.
Yeah. I can tell.
Like, yeah, right. And going around Newtown, you're like, man, like the trends are constantly changing. Everything's getting reborn and reanimated, but it's the same stuff over and over again. They loved, they don't so much anymore, but they loved Frida Kahlo. Frida Kahlo was like everywhere.
Yeah.
So I had this idea of like, what if there was a barista who's just like a bit wanky, like he, has all this coffee knowledge and he gets dragged to hell. And I also wanted a character where, because he kind of dies and he gets reanimated as a zombie, obviously, and like. Yeah. It's so torturous having this guy be a zombie that you're like, I want the reader to want this character to die for his own good, like in a weird, like comically bleak way, like because so that was like just a bit of fun. Like I'd literally just go to the library and just like handwrite it, like I'd just be like, oh, this is funny as
so because you described Newtown to a T. Like as soon as I was reading, I'm going like, this is Newtown. Like I played a few gigs there. Obviously the what's the theater?
The Enmore.
Enmore, that's the one. Yeah. Been there a million times. I saw Weird Al last year.
Right.
Weird Al Yankovic. That was fantastic. I've seen Leno and Woodley. I've seen Ross Noble. Band of Horses. Like I've been in Newtown is the place to go. Just not the place to park. I mean,
right? It's terrible for that, man. Yeah. Luckily, my girlfriend, my wife now, but my girlfriend at the time, she went to Enmore TAFE, so we could park in there. That was good. Yeah. But that was our little thing. But Newtown was so cool. I loved going there. It was that we used to go there all the time, but it was it's that thing of like I love it, but also, God, there's this other side of it that I don't match. Like I'm not in a city,
You just have to walk down the street once and you see everything. Like all these different people and like literally different people.
Literally, it's cool. Like it's cool. It's also, it's so overstimulating. I find. I went there like when I went and saw Tony Hawk this year. Actually, it was like I think Mardi Gras was on. Oh, maybe it was someone else. I saw something else. Mardi Gras was on, and it was it could have been because it was Mardi Gras, but there was so much going on. Like it was. And I'm just overstimulated. Like I'm just like, oh my God, because I'm so used to not being in cities, But you get all kinds of people. It's cool. So that was that. Like I just playing around, like looking up demons' names. Like I've added all his demons to the book. I was like, oh, what's another demon's name? Or and then I think I got a copy of Paradise Lost, like the poem, John Milton's poem.
Yep.
And the bit where Denny gets dragged to hell. I think he falls 9 days and 9 nights the span, and that's from Paradise Lost. Like I was like, I'm just gonna steal this. I'm just gonna steal this line from this, old poem where it's like he falls for 9 days and nights. Yeah. So because at the time I was like, I love that kind of intertextuality, being like, I'm gonna do a little reference here to this book or that book, and I'm still kind of doing it.
Yeah, that's cool. No, I love like that. That's my jam, like referencing and putting your little Easter eggs in and
Yeah.
You know, I'm working on finishing. Like, I wrote a screenplay trilogy, and I'm turning it into books now.
Yep.
So basically, a zombie apocalypse happens at a bucks party.
Right.
But like a medieval themed bucks party, so everyone's got the weapons.
Yeah, cool.
So it's very cool. But like in the third one, I'm working on it's in the future. They're kind of safe, but like, so what is this community of people doing for entertainment? There's no technology anymore, all that stuff. So I have these kids putting on performances of Die Hard, but like on a stage play, or
right, like an old like Shakespearean style.
Yeah, but like all the movies that we grew up loving watching, and
that's awesome.
Now these kids are just performing it on the play stage.
So you can really you could get those lines because they're not it's like a generic line. You could have the ET, like the finger and all of that, like whatever. That's cool. That's very awesome.
But that's my jam.
I love I love getting references and then hiding them a bit, like not making them too obvious. Like the current trilogy I'm doing, like Don Quixote is like what I've been playing with a bit, like Don Quixote and Trainspotting, which are quite opposite or completely unlike each other, but it's just cool to grab these different things and try and weave them together.
Well, why don't we, because what book's coming out at the end of the year?
It's called so there's a book coming out on Monday, which is a little novella. Yes.
Let's plug that one.
Let's plug that one. Cool.
When this episode drops, it'll already be out. So
well, there you go. There was Monday in the past, this book dropped. It's called The Land Herself. So basically, so I've got this trilogy, and I was just going to do the main books because I was like, I don't really want to have to do all these little other things or whatever. And I had some notes on my hard drive and stuff. And I was talking to one of the break-ins, and they were like, "Oh, what have you thought about doing any reader magnets? Like, as like an advertising thing, you could do like a short story or a novella and give it out to make a reading list. Yeah, sorry, like a mailing list. Sorry." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, like maybe." And I had a look through some of the hard drives. Like, "Oh, I've got this story, like actually, and it kind of ties into this trilogy." So on Monday, in the past, it will be coming out. It's called The Land Herself. It's about the world that the story set in. It's like the body of a dead god or goddess. So her lover stabbed her in the heart with this big ancient looking blade, and she died, and she's dead. And he went away, and then sort of she turned to stone and to land, and stuff grew on her, and then life came from it and stuff. And so basically, hundreds of thousands of years in the future, you've got like it's kind of become a bit of a tower. It's like like an artifact that people revere, So inside this tower is like a monastery and a what's the one for nuns? Convent. So there's a monastery and a convent. So the story of The Land Herself follows these two characters. One of them is an acolyte of the monastery, and the other one is a former slave to them, and a former criminal. And it's kind of just about them. The acolyte sort of has faith in what's going on, and the other one's kind of very much an atheist and doesn't believe it. And it's kind of just exploring those characters, really, a bit of just exploration around that. Which is probably a really bad way of telling it, but yeah. So it's a novella that I have been working on for a couple of months now, and I feel like it's probably the best thing I've written, honestly.
Wow.
I've tried to condense it to the point. Like, I love writing short, but I love putting stuff in. Like, I love putting maximum stuff in within a short amount of space. So there's like references all across the trilogy and the other trilogy. So I've got two trilogies that I'm working on. The only thing about it is that it kind of the book occurs in like the last probably 50 pages of the trilogy. So it's kind of not a spoiler, but it's kind of like, it's not a prequel. It's kind of like right near the end. So yeah, but I don't think it really gives that much away about what's happening.
Cool.
So yeah.
Cool. Out now. Buy it. Where can they buy it?
Yeah.
Where can they
As
buy
of
it?
the 29th of July, it's out. Yeah. On Kindle and
Amazon.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. On Amazon and probably throw it up on Draft to Digital.
So are you self-publishing and stuff like that, doing it all yourself?
Yeah.
Do you have beta readers and all that fancy stuff?
I use betas, and so far I've been like using Grammarly and stuff, but use a lot of betas and stuff to go through it. Like I've read I don't know if you know, what's his name? He wrote Writing into the Dark. Dean Wesley Smith. I don't know if you know Dean Wesley Smith, but he's a writer who did like lots of Star Trek and X-Files books, but like, you know, lots of franchise books. But then when he offered himself and did that, him and his wife. So he wrote a book called Writing into the Dark, and it's all about like pantsing basically and his style of writing. But he often won't use developmental editors. He'll, you know, give it an edit like typos and line editing and things like that, but not necessarily developmental editing. So yeah, oftentimes I'll give it to a couple of betas and they'll read it and see what they feel, and then I'll just obviously make tweaks to the typos and ensure that it's all correct and stuff. Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah,
one of the worst feelings is finding a typo in a book.
yeah. I'm like, luckily I'm just chucking them up for like $1 or something. Like I'm not. Yeah. It's not like I'm charging them the same as like a traditionally published book.
Yeah.
Being like, accept all my typos. Like, and you know, like you can always it's the cool thing is you can update the file as well and fix all that.
Yeah.
100%. But obviously you want to get it out there as clean as you can.
Yes. Yeah, no, because I self-published first, and it was a nightmare. It was a mess. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just going, blah, you know?
Yeah, check it out.
Then I got picked up by a publisher.
Yep.
And then they redid everything and made it look much more professional.
Better. Yeah,
Yeah, but the other stuff that I'm working on now, I'm just putting up on my website, and just, you know, it's just, you know, for me to go back to a publisher, it's got to be something super special.
Yep. So you're preferring going in like completely independent?
Yeah. Well, I just more freedom.
Yeah.
You know, albeit like the publisher I went with, like they, you know, they were really good, like, but they didn't have anything to change in the book at all. It's like they went, oh, it's all really good, and I know other people with the same publisher have like they've been more, you know, oh, change this, change that, lots of more feedback. But mine, you know, Letters from the Emu. Well, let me plug it. You people.
Oh yes, I've heard about this.
Yeah, that's my book.
Is it so?
It's literally all letters. So imagine an old wartime book full of soldiers writing letters to their loved ones.
And are these soldiers emus?
Yes. So it's told from the perspective of the emus.
Perfect.
But I even
the victors, right? They won.
They did win. But I even made my own newspapers.
Oh, that's so cool, man.
That way, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like I went super in depth, but like, so it's not like once upon a time there was yada yada yada.
Yeah.
It's literally written like by like a collection of history.
Yeah.
Like letters and
did I see that
paper articles and stuff like that?
Was there a school in the US that contacted you about that?
Yes. Two.
Yeah.
One kid from Maryland's doing a project. He was like a 13-year-old kid.
That's cool.
Interviewed me, and he was super awkward, and you could tell his mum was just off screen going, "Say this," like that. It was. Yeah. But then there was another one. I couldn't pronounce the city. It was in America. It was like some weird French name, but in America. And they were doing a high school performance or something. Then they wanted to use some excerpts or something.
That's cool.
That, and then the only other school was Singleton. At Singleton, a teacher contacted me and asked me if there was a study guide because he bought an entire class set. You know.
Wow, that's cool.
So I was just like, you know, it's doing well in schools.
That's awesome that it's in schools. Like that's because that's what I've always heard in terms of like, especially like children's fiction. Like, you know, not that is I don't know if it's necessarily, but it's like the fact that one of the hard parts about indie publishing children's fiction is that you really got to get into schools because that's where they get the books.
Yeah.
And
well, I can owe that to Shoreline, who's my publisher. Because when I wrote it, I was literally, this is a funny story. I don't write crass stuff or anything. I just wrote what it was, and then they said, "Oh, we're going to aim it for 8 to 12-year-olds." I went, "Okay, cool, whatever," you know. So I had to change 1 or 2 words to make it more kid friendly.
Yeah.
They don't like saying bastard or whatever, you know.
Yeah, right.
Like, you know. So I changed it to some old timey version of that. Like they instantly saw the appeal for kids, and you know, but it's like I've always said it's like a Disney Pixar book.
Yep.
Like
That's awesome.
There's stuff in there for adults as well, you know.
Yeah. There's jokes and comments and
and
yeah.
I mean, I do in one of my news, because every newspaper article has, it's just typical. It's got like a main story, whatever. It's basically summarizing what's the key event is, and then I have the classifieds and stuff like that put in there. And I put in basically the emu version of the Pina Colada song.
Right.
You know, and it's just like I've changed it to enough that it's not the Pina Colada song, but you can tell it's the Pina Colada song.
That it's a reference to it. Yeah. That's awesome.
But, so like now I'm trying to learn how to write, you know, like I mainly do novellas and stuff like that, like that, and it's like completely new to me.
Like that's
just easier.
Yeah, you know? And it's not even that it's honestly, it's not that because you go, oh, it's shorter, so obviously it's easier, but it's not. It's I just love that. It's not, you know, it's not always easy. Like obviously, I find it hard to sit there and type like a whole massive. That's why this trilogy is taking so long, because I'm like, oh man, I'd love to have a concise thing like 30,000 words or something, but I love that length. Like novellas are so good, and it's that same thing with the short story. Like I can have it all in my mind. Like there's novellas I've read where it's like I can remember everything that's pretty much happened. Like it's whereas novels, like I don't remember this bit, I don't remember the character. There's whole chunks of it I don't remember. I love novellas.
Yeah. No, I think I'm finding it easy because I'm just basically turning screenplays into you know, so it's already mapped out for me.
So you've got like the dialogue ready to go.
Yeah.
And so you're just kind of putting descriptions of.
Expand it, because with screenplays, it's basically this is what the scene is, this is what the actions are, these are what the words are. So I've just got to flesh out more of the description of what's happening, because if it's a screenplay, it's usually to the director's leisure or whatever. He's like, okay, I'll take this and I'll do this and I'll do that. But now I've got to flesh it out a bit more.
You're moving your camera around.
Yeah, pretty much. Director. Like so it's short. It's short. I mean, like the first one was I think 22,000 words or something.
Yeah.
The second one was 18 maybe. Like I've fully drafted that one, and now I'm moving on to the third one, which is going to be a lot bigger because it was like the third and finale, you know, final movie. So it was like a bit more. You got to answer the questions, plot twists, and all that stuff. So more character. You're merging two books together.
Yeah.
So now you've got double the characters.
Yeah.
You know, so it's going to be take a lot longer, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've tried to speed up what I'm doing. Not rush, but just try and get a bit more efficient with producing it. You know. Because I feel like I've been in my mind, I've had this for, you know, going on, you know, 8 years or whatever. Yeah. And then I make this Instagram account and start making author friends, because I had no one. I knew no one who was writing, and no one knew I was writing.
Like me,
like no one. And then all of a sudden you start making friends. Like I know people from Wollongong and Melbourne or wherever. And you almost get this kick to be like, oh, I've got to pick up the game. Like not trying to rush and compete, but just be like, hey man, if you're doing this, like let's do it. Like, you know, like it's. So that's my goal for this year. At the start of the year was I'm just going to try and get this trilogy finished, written by the end of the year. So I've got 3 books ready to go, and then I can edit them. But then the more I've spoken to people, they're like, oh, like maybe just get the first one out there, and then you can get the second. So I think I'm going to try that a bit more and just focus on this first book it's sitting up on the shelf. This manuscript that's been sitting there. I finished this manuscript May last year, like, and it's been sitting there, and I'm like, no, I'm going to do the second one, then the third, but now I'm thinking, no, I'm just going to do the first one, and I'm halfway through the second book basically. So it's not like I'm going to have that second book syndrome of like, I've got nowhere to start, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I know what's going to happen. Like I pants it to an extent, but I'm also like, it's been sitting there long enough that I know what's happening. So
have you reached out or joined any of the Facebook groups? Like there's a whole lot of author groups on Facebook.
So it's top secret at the moment, but I've joined a writing group at the moment. Ooh. But there will be some news coming out about that.
Cool.
Yes. Cool. So stay tuned. I think the 25th of August potentially is when we were going to do a big reveal. But
cool.
Awesome. As to who is in the group. But yes, like like I went to a little meetup because some of the break-ins. So Jonathan Weiss and Joshua Walker and Louise Holland from Adelaide. Like they came up to Supernova the other week, or
cool.
maybe a month or so ago, and then I met with them. I was like, "Oh, you guys are in Sydney at Supernova. I'll come and meet you." We had dinner, and Mark Timoney was there. Like we were all having a good chat, and it was good to just literally have a conversation with someone that's like, "Hey, this person's talking about writing characters. Like I've never spoken about that to anyone." Like literally having someone across from you, like kind of not whinge, but be like, "Oh, I've got my characters and they're not doing this. I want them to do this." You're like, "Oh my god, like, dude, just talk about that for hours, man. I will listen." Because it's this conversation that I feel like I didn't realize how I wasn't having enough of.
Yeah. No, it is good having other friends that are writers. But that's because when my first book came out, then I started doing all these interviews. So the podcast had already been going for a year and a half or that before then, and we started interviewing people, and we were really we weren't as casual and free flowing at the start. We're trying to be very formal, and then we just broke into our whatever thing. But that's how I've just started networking with all these different authors from all around the world. So that's just a great place to just meet people. And
I found it's like so much, like so liberating, it's so freeing to just be like, so I have this Instagram account I'm on here. I'll just message someone, like I see an author, I'm like, they'll post something on their story, I'm like, I'll just directly message them. Whereas like last year or whenever, like I wouldn't have done that on my like personal account. I wouldn't have been I didn't post anything, didn't message anyone. But like now it's like, because you kind of have this, not a persona, but you are yourself, but you kind of almost have like the authenticity or the allowance to just kind of message and talk and network with others. It's so cool.
Yeah, most people are super open too. Because when I started, I was just like Instagram #author #Australian author. Just goes through, and you got a list of all these authors,
Yeah.
And most of them, like yourself, are super keen to come on,
So I made this account because I have a publishing house. Like it's Dark Acolyte Press. I've got this my company, right? So it looks legit. But when I first made this account, I made it under that. I didn't have my face on there. I was like, "Oh, I'm just going to make my publisher account, so when I publish these books, it will be legit." And in order to get not followers, but to find links and stuff, I literally went on to I think Matthew J. Turner, up in Queensland, one of the authors. I went on to his. I was just like, I'm going to follow a bunch of these people. Like I'll see who is following him, and I'll start linking with these people. So I literally found one author and followed a bunch, not just spamming, but like being like, "Oh, you're an author, like I'll try and network with these people." So it's insane how easy it is as well. Just
technology, huh?
As much as like for years I've been like, "Oh, I don't really like it on Instagram or whatever," but then you get this and you're like, "Oh, but it's different." Like when you're actually genuinely socializing and creating like proper good relationships with people you've actually physically never met. It's really cool.
Especially when it's not just about take. You're giving, like, because a lot of people are just like selfish, and
exactly.
Just like, I want this from you. I want, and you're just like,
and like it's like signing up for arcs. Like I've got friends. Like I'll be like, "Oh, sign up like for arc because I'll read your arc and I'll give you like I'll give you feedback." Like not because I'm like wanting you to do the same for me, but because I want to see you succeed. It's like it's that thing of like, especially being indie, it's like all of these indie authors, the more you support each other, the more everyone's able to
100%
succeed. So it's just it's like that kind of, it's that community feeling, it's that communal feeling of like we're all in it together, And
again, that's why I started interviewing people on this podcast and all that, because I wanted to give them a platform to
that's so
get their stuff out there, because I struggled. Like, I mean, my book kind of sells itself. Like, I don't really like advertise it all that much, because like I've got the old version still up from it's on Amazon or other few places, and I still sell a few copies every month. Like, just people just Googling Emu War.
Like that's your original self-published is still up there, and the newer one that was republished. Okay, cool.
I just left them both up because, like, look, they're different covers. I felt like the newer one has got a better design. You can tell it's professional, so more people lean towards that one. But the other one's still there, and people are still buying it. So
you've kind of got double the chance, really. Well, that's like I made. So I changed my Instagram account to my own Ainy Cormac account, and then I'm like, oh, but I'll still have like a little side account for my press because it kind of is that double advertising. Like anything I post on this account goes to this account automatically, and anyone who follows that will see this. So it's kind of, it feeds into it. You almost get like double the advertising.
Yeah.
That's
the way. Well, let's talk about your series, your 7-book series or whatever. Like, like how, because we had, and I think you mentioned you listened to the episode with Anthony Curl.
Yes.
Yeah. And how insane he is with world building.
Yeah.
Like how do you go about it? Like he started with maps and stuff like that, you know.
I'll be honest, man. Like, and okay, so at the moment, like I'm posting daily. I'm like posting a countdown to when this book comes out on Monday, the 29th. But I was actually going to do a video of like the map, because as much as I love fantasy maps, I'm also like, I don't want to be beholden to a scrap of paper, you know. And like, that's not me saying like, oh, I'm just going to completely like this city that was originally in the north. I'll mention that it's in the west. Doesn't matter who. That's not what I'm saying. But it's just the fact of like, I totally agree with. I don't know if you've read Joe Abercrombie's view on it, and also Mark Lawrence has one as well. And I totally agree with both of their views about not putting maps in books. Like I love maps, and I drew a map the other day. And it looks really good, I think. But I'm like, oh, man, maybe I won't, because I feel like it does. For example, Wheel of Time, like you look at the map and it's amazing. But you're kind of almost expecting the author to just reference every single city that
on the map.
Like, are you going to mention that place, or are you going to mention that place yet? And so characters, sometimes they'll just say throw away lines almost, and that's maybe not why he did it, but almost to give that place a reason. The same with like Game of Thrones. You got this map and there's lots of places, but you're wondering if they're going to reference them all. So I kind of just didn't want it to distract too much, because I think I wanted to drag it back to just those characters. Like you're in the head or in the POV of just that character. And from what I've gathered, like I've never been to America, right? But I was thinking about it, you know, when I read Pet Sematary, there's a bit where the character goes from Maine and they fly over to Chicago and then they come back. And I don't know necessarily what that looks like. I don't know. And Stephen King didn't include a map, right? But I don't need one, right? Like I can assume that they've gotten on a plane, they've flown off screen, almost like as a stage, and they've come back, and so that's so your question was kind of about world building, and so I do world build, but then also I think that I world build in a sense that's like I'm not that meticulous, because I've done I've maps to fit the story. So I'd start with the story. I'm like, oh, the character's going to go here. They're going to do this. So I need a map that needs to fit that. But then all of a sudden I'm creating this world that needs to fit the story, and it just doesn't feel right. So after a few years of that, I was like, all right, so the world is this goddess who is dead, but then she's risen up. She was reanimated. And because she had all turned to stone and continents and stuff, she crumbles. It's called the Sundering, and she falls to pieces. So the world is scattered like continents, but it was originally basically a massive colossal giant.
Oh, cool.
So that's kind of that's it. And her blood is this stuff called Kybris, which is like magical. You know, you can use it for expanding magical powers and things like that. There's all this world building stuff to it, but I try and keep it a bit loose and focus mostly on those characters. So for example, the book The Land Herself that is coming out on the 29th, I don't imagine building too much around that more. You know, I'm not going to, you know how like you can go like, all right, this side character, let's write a story about him or them. Like I'm just going to leave it blank. Like there's a character in it called Shadram, and he's got this criminal past, and he's trying to outrun that past, and he's like trying to move on, and you don't know what he did. Like that, I just left it like you don't know what he did, like what the crime was. It doesn't necessarily go into it. I like the mist at the edges. And the world literally has like a mist around it that you can't kind of go beyond, or you can, but it's spoilers. So
See, maybe that's how you should do your maps. You know, like just like the start of an RPG where you can only see.
That's
like,
that's literally where I got the idea.
Yeah.
I was playing GTA once, and I'm like, you get the edge of the map or something, and you're like, imagine this was in a fantasy world where you've just got this barrier, and it's not like the most original idea, but it's like this barrier where in order to go across it, you've really got to sacrifice everything in your life that you love.
Yeah.
So it's a big ask. But yeah. Sorry, I had a train of thought there and I completely lost it. But
right.
yeah. So yeah, like in terms of world building, it's like I think that's why I went back to a first person trilogy, because I was trying to weave together these characters almost like Game of Thrones or something like that, where it's like I've never written a novel, man. Like, why am I jumping on and
start small?
Why am I trying to write it? Because I was trying to write a 5-book series. I'm like, why the hell am I trying to do this with these characters who, because for example, Game of Thrones, all the characters start off in Winterfell at the start, pretty much. And then they all kind of expand out, and you follow Rob and you follow John, and they all eventually move out, and they all have a connection to each other. But I was kind of starting with these characters from all over the place I was never really planning on bringing them together. It was just disparate pieces. So yeah. Basically at the moment it's 2 trilogies. One is this one that's coming out called The Curse of Olin, which is a first person story. And the second one is Untitled, and that's more of a it's going to be probably more of a multi POV trilogy. And then at the end, I've got kind of like I'm calling it like a grim dark children's novel, but it's more like it's like a dark fantasy. And after watching Return of the Jedi last night, I'm like, it's that kind of vibe, maybe a little bit darker, where it's like it's kids. It's not for kids, it's for adults, but it's kids. But Jabba gets strangled, or like this thing is pretty grim.
Yeah, just more darker tone.
Yeah, right. Like, and not reveling in it, but the fact of like it doesn't shy away, but it's also trying to maintain that innocence that those kids' movies have.
Yeah.
Or because the whole time I've been thinking this is grimdark, but then the more I read it, I'm like, it's not really, because I kind of have too much hope and too much compassion in it. Like it's kind of like I don't want to get into this hopelessness. It's dark stuff happens, but it's like it's kind of maintaining that, like, I'm really trying to keep and there's too many jokes. Like these books are bawdy at times, like so I think I answered the question. I can't remember.
No,
I went off, man. We've gone off a few times.
No, we have
tangential. I mean, you did say in the email that it'd be tangential, but
I did.
You fed that.
Yeah. No, well, my mind just goes like this all the time. Like, this is like I'm a very slow reader.
Yep.
Because literally something will trigger my mind, and I'll go, "That's the idea for this. What if that?" Like I'm reading flipping War of the Worlds for the first time, and super short chapters, and I'm like, just lunch break at work, have a couple of pages for the chapter, and I can manage that. But even then, like, I'm already thinking about it. Now I want to write a sci-fi. Know, it's just like
the earlier. So in terms of, I think one of the questions you're probably going to get to it, but any future things coming up, I was like, okay, so this has been like the idea of my, like, this is my magnum opus. Like, this is this 7-book series. I want to limit it to 7 books, hopefully, because it's like, I don't want it to be, I don't want to die before it finishes, right? I want to get it done. But then, like, and I've been working on that, and then all of a sudden this year, like, I'm like, oh, like, I've never really read many mecha novels, like Evangelion or something like with mechs, and I'm like, so I'm thinking, oh, like, I'll do this cyberpunk / mech novel, and it'll be like, it'll be just a single novel, it'll be thick, like, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, well, now I've got this whole other project that I'm ambitious as about, and I love it, like, it's so cool. And then I had this other idea. I had a dream, like, it was in January sometime. I had this dream of like a school reunion, and I was like, oh man, like a school reunion where everyone just gets sucked into a fantasy world by, like, like there's that stereotypically there's that insecure kid who is a little bit off kilter, like he, almost like the shooter, but like he drags them into this fantasy world, and I'm like, oh my god, like that would be epic. That would be such a cool story. So I've got these 2 other massive ideas that I'm like, I've just got to finish this series, like, but it's like you say, like, it's so hard to read. Like, I'll try and read. I'm like, oh, that's spurred an idea. I'm going to write that down, and then all of a sudden I'm writing something down. I find audiobooks can help with that, because I have no ability to.
Yeah, that's a lot. Like, one of my the first screenplays I ever wrote, I technically co-wrote with my other host Chris.
But he's not here, so you get away.
No, I can claim for it, and he doesn't listen, so he doesn't listen to it. So
right.
Yeah, we did this one where we wanted the idea of, there's ones where you get sucked into a video game kind of stuff,
Yeah.
but the twist is that it's not a video game. It's an
Right.
actual fantasy world
Yep.
that the bad guys learnt to take people's, essentially their souls, into that world. So basically, everyone puts on this headset and you can play it at night while you're sleeping, but
It's
you never,
actually
you never wake
real.
up. Yeah, but you go in there and it's got the HUDs, everything's set up, and you get in this fantasy land. You got all these,
That's cool.
guys, and you go in there, you be whatever animal you want to be, but it's basically your souls become, another creature inside that world, and then there's like a demon in there that's taking your souls and killing all these real people. Kind of. That was that was our fantasy world.
It's really like controversial, but like Thomas Covenant has been like, I have problems with the novel, but also that thing of like a character being dragged into a world that's like a fantasy world, but he doesn't believe that it's real, and that's kind of something I really want to do a play on that, because he kind of was playing on Tolkien. I want to play on that, where it's like this character who's like this despicable, despised character getting dragged into a fantasy world where it's beautiful, everything amazing, like there's stuff that can rejuvenate your body and all of this, but he doesn't believe it. He refuses to believe it, and I don't know. But then again, it's a hard sell, that book. For obvious reasons. So
no. Anyway, I lost my train of thought.
No, that's all right. I mean, I've got notes.
You got notes?
I've got notes, man. Like, just because I was looking at it last night, I was like, all right, so what these questions are, and I'll just get some notes.
This is how tangenty we are.
That's good.
No, look, is there any more you want to talk about? Your
no, look, at the moment it's just at the Cirilliarc. The Cirilliarc is like, at the moment it's a 7-book series, so 2 trilogies and a standalone in the future, and there'll be some more short stories, novellas, and all of the short stories and novellas I give out for free. Like to people on the mailing list. Like I just send them out for free, and all my short stories I just send them out for free, because I'm like, you have them. Like I would love people to have them. I don't care about the money or whatever. It's have them. So that's what I'm working at the moment. Then there'll be a novel hopefully coming out at the end of the year or maybe early next year called Prepare for Me a Shallow Grave, which is the first book in that series. So the first book in that trilogy is called Prepare for Me a Shallow Grave. And and then hopefully when I've finished that trilogy, I might jump onto one of those other 2 ideas that I was looking at, because they're just begging to be written.
That's it.
I can't get rid of them.
Have you got have you got a book that you write your ideas in, or did you have a?
I try, but here's the thing: like I've in the past I've gotten like really nice, nice journals. I've got where is it? I've got like fountain pen here. Like this fountain pen is really cool because it fills up a lot. You can hold a lot of ink. It's fantastic. It's great. I use it a lot. But the problem is that like when I find that the pieces are too official, it kills my motivation, because I'm like, I don't want to taint this thing. So I've just find sometimes just like literally just grabbing some like binder thing and so the pages are ratty and they're all scribbled on. You got the margins are all drawn in. Like get the chaos on the page. That's why I do like writing by hand sometimes. Whereas I have used Scrivener and I've been using Scrivener for years, but the problem with it is like the file I'm working in is the file that will be the book, right? So like at the end of the day, I'm going to hit this button that says compile and it's going to create an ebook, and then I've got my official book. So I kind of keep playing around and trying to make it look as good as I can. And what I need is actually just a really dirty, rough first draft. So I've switched back over to Word, I think.
I use something called Storyist or something. It's like some random app that I found on Mac. And that works fine for me. And like it's whatever works for you. Like it's the thing, like jumping around. So I've tried dictation and I've never been able to do it. Like it's because I'll be like, just I can't talk. Like and I know it takes a lot of effort, but at the moment just scribbling between that and just Word. I think Word's cool because it or even Google Docs, because it reminds me of being at school. In terms of like nothing I type matters right now. Like it's just like I'm just writing some assignment, whatever, like it's kind of, you can bang around on it, whereas it's not
it doesn't feel too official. Like this is a novel, like, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
Like it loose. I like it loose.
Yeah. No, it's the
like,
best.
Because I'll even if I was a bestseller, I'm like I'll never feel like a pro.
Yeah.
I'm surprised I started writing. But if go back 5-6 years, and I'll be like, I'm going to be a writer. What? It's just like I never set out for this life, and now I'm enjoying it.
Like when those first reviews start coming in, like there's a woman I think in Estonia, and she has read all of the stories I've put up and reviewed them on Goodreads, and I'm like, dude, the fact that someone has read them full stop is insane.
Yeah.
The fact that someone from the other side of the world and has reviewed them and has reviewed them positively, like I've gotten 5 and 4-star reviews. It's like, that's insane. Like I would never have dreamed of it.
I'd be happy with a 1-star review from over there.
Hate on it, I don't care. Like you've experienced it.
You've read my book.
That's insane. Yeah, like I love it. So, but yeah, it's that thing of that's this whole networking thing. That's this whole But no, thank you for having me on. Like,
no, of course, man. We'll have to get you back on. Okay.
Yeah, of course.
We can do a skateboard episode.
You know more than me. It's like as a kid, like it's that kind of thing. I was like living it. Like I didn't know to necessarily know, like, it was just like you're living it. Like you work on whatever board you had. It might have been some crappy thing. Like you're in it. Like I just loved it.
Yeah. And the town I live in has like one street with guttering.
Yes, right.
And that same street is the only street with street lights.
Same around here. Like everywhere I've lived, it's always just been. I've never really had those smooth curbs that people have. You're lucky, man. Like the smooth roads. It's always been like.
But the 20 plus. No, I'm gonna say 25 years ago. Showing my age here. It was just booming. That we're in this tiny little town. There's 20, 30 skateboarders. Like all the kids skated, and there's one intersection. Like my town's literally 13 streets, one road in, and there's this intersection which is like the busiest at peak. So at peak hour, it's like 15 cars. It's like it's hardly anything. But we'd always have the intersection set up with all homemade skateboard ramps. There was actually an old pipeline behind one of my friend's house.
Yeah.
And he didn't even ask if it was still functional or not. He just went down there with a hacksaw.
Right.
Cut this 3-meter section out of this, old pipeline, and then welded, beat on it, made some rails and stuff like that. But then, like, come 5 o'clock every day, like we'd have to move it all out of the street. The cars would be beeping their horns. There was like 30 of us looking for a place to skate.
Yeah. No, I remember my brother, because my youngest brother, he was when I was probably like, I don't know, 18, 19, 20 or something like that. He was still into skating, and he made his own curb wax. Yeah. So, and he built a rail that was this dodgy thing with like where at the bottom of a door, that metal bracket thing between the carpet. He had that on top of it, like nails and whatever. It was dodgy. Yeah. And he spent so long waxing this thing that as soon as he went on, he snapped his wrist, like he just broke his arm. Like it was just. But it was like that dedication of like, I've made curb wax, I've made this. It's so cool.
I turned an old couch into a half pipe. Because it had the curved armchair. It was so dodgy. Yeah. Like, because I live like in the bush pretty much, and then like as soon as I had that thing in my backyard, kids knocking on my door every day. Can we come use the ramp?
Yeah.
And it wasn't even the best ramp. It was like pretty dodgy. It was warped in the middle, so it was just like. You almost stack it,
Yeah. That was cool. Like, as a kid, just spending all your like pocket money and stuff on bits of wood. Like where we grew up, there was a Bunnings right down the road, and we just you'd save up money and be like, I'm going to get some like plywood for something. You wouldn't go out and buy toys or games or whatever. You'd buy this wood.
No, there was that many construction sites where I lived at that time. We just used to raid them, like take the old plywood planks and and whoops, no, I don't know where that's gone.
It's missing. Yeah,
cool. Anyway, plug yourself. Where can people buy your books? Where can people follow you?
The best place is probably on Instagram, just Ainy Cormac, like at Ainy Cormac. That's probably the best place. I do have a website, but it's pretty derelict and pretty sparse. It's just called ainycormac.com. and so I'm paying for it. But it's also like I got to do some work on it, man. But if you want to visit it, it's there. So the best place is probably on Instagram. I also I have it linked on Facebook and Threads and all of that, but probably Instagram and so if you want to jump on Amazon, the books are all up there under Ainy Cormac, and this book comes out on the 29th of July. At the moment it's just ebook, but I'm looking to have a couple more short stories and put them into a bit of a collection to have a physical copy.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on, and
thanks, man.
Guys, you know the drill. Stories _ podcast on Instagram. We're on X now. Link will be in the show notes. It's a different stories podcast was taken there on X, so I had to change it. If you want to reach out, thetrueandthefictional@gmail.com. But thanks guys, and we'll catch you next time.
Perfect. Thank you.
This podcast is brought to you by Martin Kearns and the Valor of Valhalla series. In the battle between two ancient evils, can one naive young man become the last hope against powerful creatures of legend? Beneath the Veil is the gripping first book in the Valor of Valhalla dark urban fantasy series. If you like reluctant heroes, infernal myths, and bloody epic clashes, then you'll love Martin Kearns' formidable foray into the unknown. So head on over to readkearns.com and grab yourself a copy of Beneath the Veil today.